Hey y'all! I decided to do this video about something called attachments. The reason I picked it is because it's something I'm struggling with a lot right now in my life. And I don't think a lot of people understand or really know what it means to have like attachment issues or attachment disorders. I definitely struggle with abandonment issues, and I really related to. That's why I picked this part from online. I really related to it saying these fears of abandonment seem to be related to difficulties feeling emotionally connected to important persons when they are physically absent. So the time periods in which I would say like these attachments per se are the worst is when I haven't seen someone in a long time and like been physically with them. It's kind of hard to explain, but like I almost forget how to like not forget, but I feel like I forget like how to feel for them. Like the distance in between is like an actual barrier. That's a good way to put it. And that like the only thing that's gonna really change that is seeing the person. So that's definitely a difficult one because people are busy, and like now with friends living all across the country, there's definitely some attachments to people that I was angry at for a long time. And I blamed them for leaving, and I blamed them for making me unhappy. And I now take ownership of that. I know that my reactions aren't necessarily good. But I don't know. At the same time, like, I'd really never put it into words at like this excerpt did. And it just really resonated with me because, especially for people who I'm really close to and have the strongest attachments to, even small chunks of time, I feel like I'm gonna forget who we are or what we had or like the emotions that we shared when we see each other. And I have this like ginormous fear of once I see the person again, it's just not gonna be the same. And it's gonna be different, meaning they'll leave me. And I can tell myself that 1,000 times, like, no, they're gonna leave you. And then, like, the next day or even 10 minutes later, I'm like, well, here's a list of reasons why they could leave me, probably are, and the end. And I think a part of that, too, that, like, struggling with physical distance is kind of that, like, possessive piece of attachments. And I know that that sounds really bad, and there's just not really another word that like works for it. It's kind of like you get distressed when the person's not around, and then the longer they're not around, your emotions are going more towards anxiety, anger, fear, and less towards whatever emotions or feelings you feel for that person. And that's why like I struggle a lot with, for example, like I went on winter break for like 3.5 weeks, and don't get me wrong, I had a great time, and one of my friends ended up coming in town, and family time was amazing, and I was petrified of coming back and people not wanting to be around me anymore, or people thinking like different of me even though I didn't do anything. And it just like sits on your chest, and like it just sat with me until I saw like different people. And then of course like well, not of course, it doesn't always happen, but I'm like, what am I worried about? Like, this is totally fine. But it's because I've been physically around the person, talking to them, seeing them, whatever. Because then if it's like, I would say like probably the 3-day mark is when I start to really like kind of lose my shit. And people are busy. I know there's nothing they can do about that. And this is one of those like, it's such an immediate like response that I have to my thoughts that I haven't found a way to control it yet. Along with BPD, obviously there's like insecurities, identity issues, and relationship turmoil. After I've done kind of some research, and I mean also talked to like therapists and psychiatrists and whatnot, I definitely have like an attachment problem. You can't diagnose attachment disorders like after the age of 5, I believe, because it's like stemmed from childhood. However, that doesn't mean like someone didn't catch it when you were young and then it just kept growing with you. So this explains what's called anxious-ambivalent attachment, and I'll explain why I resonate with that. The anxious ambivalent adult is distrustful of relationships, but life for them revolves around them nonetheless, like around relationships. I had to read that twice and I was like, that makes no sense, but revolves around relationships. He or she analyzes the behavior of others obsessively, replaying the same things over and over and over again. I read those 2 sentences and thought I got hit by a bus. I was like, oh no. But I'll finish this and then I'll explain. In addition, someone who anxious-ambivalent needs to be in control of every situation. They're also sensitive to rejection, like BPD, and tend to idealize others in relationships. The person will feel a preoccupation and a dependence on their significant other, but finds them to be difficult to understand. Extreme emotions, jealousy, and possessiveness are also common features. So that's a heavy load, and I think it really does a good job at explaining kind of where I sit and like what happens for me, especially the part about like obsessively and then replaying the same things over and over and over in my head. Like I could replay situations in my head for hours and like almost not even realize it, like not dissociate all the way, but check out, and it's out of pure worry. So obviously, like, I don't have OCD, but the obsessive part of OCD, and again, my therapist and I have like talked about this, whatever, but I kind of display traits of that where it's just this like, no matter what I say, do, try, I can't stop thinking about it. And for a while, I mean, and still sometimes it's with self-harm, but more so recently it's with relationships with other people. And I kind of revert back to how I used to be before I learned all this kind of stuff, and like getting really angry really quickly. And especially because I feel like I'm being very like understanding, like, hey, I get that you're busy, but can we insert whatever? And to me, that's like, I don't know, like extending something and me being like, yeah, okay, but you have to give it back. And that's a hard thing to sit with, especially being in a new place with a lot of new people. And don't get me wrong, I've met some incredible people, and I've really enjoyed my time with them. And I've gotten to know people well enough that I have formed attachments. And sometimes I feel guilty about it because like the person has no say whatsoever. But try telling my emotions that and my thoughts that, because they don't care. I don't know. It's just like this constant need to know what's happening, what's going on. And I really think it does stem from the fear of, I need to know these things so that when everything goes wrong, I can see why, and that I'm not just the only reason why. And out of fear of just losing the person. Or my biggest fear in terms of like losing a person isn't like getting in a fight and like cutting each other off the end. I mean, like that would suck, but my bigger fear is like when people slowly pull away. And so then I'm really hypersensitive, I guess, to situations where like I feel like someone's pulling away, and immediately it's not I feel like they're gonna, it's oh my god, they're pulling away, this is the process, like shit. And it's really distracting. Like I don't want to spend a Saturday and a Sunday just watching Netflix aimlessly, but just rolling through my head different situations of why someone didn't text me back, or why someone didn't ask me to hang out, or who is this person with right now, and so on and so forth. And I know texting isn't like important, like it shouldn't be at least, but I think it kind of helps keep that tether to the other person when I don't physically see them, if that makes sense. And like, again, this person has no say, and it's hard to tell someone, I don't like the word crazy, but I mean, it's like fitting for right now. I fear telling people this because they're gonna think I'm crazy and that I'm just like a psycho girl and blah 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 blah. But that's not the case. It's something that like I can't. I mean, I can't help the initial thought. I can help what happens after that, and I've been trying to, and most of that's texting my therapist and being like, oh my god. And a lot of that too is a learning curve, because this is the first time in my life I've been aware that I do these kind of things. So it's gonna take me some time and some practice. And thankfully, the people I have in my life right now, like in it, I mean, like all of my other friends too, but in Atlanta, the people I have in my life right now are willing to be patient, and they're willing to, for lack of better words, put up with me. Um, I know I can be frustrating, and I always joke like, I wouldn't even want to be friends with me. I don't want to be me most of the time, but hey, we're stuck with it. Gotta take what I can get. Um, and it is still very difficult to communicate because I don't want to scare someone off. I don't want to be like, hey, so you didn't text me all day, and I've been sitting here worried that you died in a ditch or something bad. Because obviously that's the only reason why they weren't texting me back, is because they got in an accident, which is so bad and not logical, but I can get to those extremes so quickly. But just communicating, and I've been afraid to be like, yeah, so like even though you're busy and like you've done nothing wrong and haven't even remotely pointed in the direction of leaving me or like being an asshole, whatever, I still need a little bit of reassurance that things are okay. And that's hard to ask someone for. And that's when I think the preconceived notion that people with attachment problems are selfish, I think that's where that stems from. But really, in the end, yeah, I'm asking to help myself, but I'm also asking to help that person, because by communicating, by telling me, by being clear, in the end, it's gonna help them be able to like deal with me or like experience and like have a relationship with me, or that it opens their eyes as to why I might have a mini freak out. And while communicating all this kind of stuff is new for me, it's very new, and I'm still not super great at it. I still get worried or paranoid that I'm going to do something that scares someone off. And I mean, for a long time, self-harm scared people off. And I mean, for the vast majority of college, I was in that really bad relationship. But after that, like, I know it scares people off. I know it's off-putting. And I don't think this was the intention behind it, but it kind of became like, I felt like I could use it to push people away. Not use it, but like wear short sleeves to something and make someone uncomfortable, and then they don't talk to me, and then they have no reason to leave me because they don't talk to me. Not great. Not proud of that. But like I said, the people I have in my life now, like, if it weren't for them being so understanding, I really don't think I'd be able to live in Georgia. Like, I struggle when I don't have like like I said, constant contact or like constant friendships or like always have plans. Like, I do not do well when I don't have anything to do. And like, for example, this weekend I had nothing going on other than like yoga and cleaning, and so I spent a lot of time by myself, and that's when I really start to obsess and get upset and freak out because I don't want to be alone with myself. I've never liked being alone. I think that fact has also like contributed to attachments. And so like, I think the best way to address attachments is don't try to deny it to yourself, because the sooner you can recognize what it is, the sooner you can, at least I felt a little bit better that there was sort of a reason behind why I would obsessively sit and think about a person. And like I said before, like, I don't want to do that. Like, I have things I need to do in my life, and I want to be like your average person that can text someone and they don't reply for a couple, like not a couple hours, but like hours, and then you only get one text back and then you hear nothing again for another day. I think a lot of times, at least from what I've talked to people about, yeah, it's a little like annoying, whatever, but it doesn't like affect their day. It doesn't affect what they have going on. And for me, it becomes all consuming. And the only way I'm ever gonna be able to maintain relationships with people is by telling them, by being upfront, by being like, hey, so I know this isn't like your average whatever, but I am gonna need a little bit more reassurance than the average person that we're good, that you're not gonna leave me, that the place we're at is whatever, the same as it's been. You still feel the same, great. And then if you don't, to tell me too, because, well, obviously that would suck, but communication is super important, and I was horrible at communicating for a long time because I let all of my emotions and like everything get in the way. And now I still get really flustered and I get really, what I would call, stuck in my ways, but I'm really trying, and it's hard. Especially to, and attachments like can be to friends, can be family members or significant others. And I have had some not so great significant others in the past. One being pretty decently abusive, some other people just being shitty people. And they either end up leaving or, like the other case, like I have to leave. And so my basis for like romantic relationships is truly fear of someone leaving, because it's happened a bunch of times. It like reassures or reiterates my fear. And I try to remind myself, like, the person that I'm seeing isn't the people that I dated in the past. They're not the person that I had a thing with, whatever, and that person like disappeared, ghosted me, whatever. They're a completely different person in a completely different stage in my life, in a completely different state for the most part also. But at some point, that's the difference, is I can see a little bit more clearly that someone's not gonna leave me, and if I think they are, I try my best to communicate that. I guess what I would say to anyone on the other side of the attachment, if you're they call it favorite person, FP, I think like, then I have a lot of favorite people if that's the case. But I hope that this gives you a little bit of insight into at least how I feel in different situations, and a little bit of it how it's out of my control, such as like the automatic thoughts and those things. It's in my control with what I do with my actions. That's always within my control and my control only, but it hopefully allows that person to see a picture that they probably or hadn't seen before. And I mean, honestly, I've gotten lucky. A lot of my attachments, especially from the past, like my really close friends, they've never left. Ever. They just call me out on my shit, and I appreciate it. But ultimately, they never left. And with these newer relationships I'm forming here, I don't have the time behind it, so it's harder to say like, oh yeah, that person's not gonna leave. But what I can say is, even through some difficult, tough times recently, or like somewhat recently, the people who are important in my life haven't left. They haven't said, I'm done, see ya. If anything, it's been, what can I do to help? Or, hey, like, I'm super busy, but when I can, like, I can try to make time or whatever. And part of me, honestly, like, made this video because I've been struggling with it so much. I really needed to, like, call myself out, I guess, and, like, try to put my words out there and explain it for y'all, but also because I was sitting here realizing, like, after I read that article, I've been knee deep in an attachment issue, and I want to be able to have a relationship that I guess isn't that way. Not that the person would care, but for my sake, I'd rather them not have to deal with it or not have to reassure me 1,000 times a day, something. So yeah, if you think someone has an attachment or you yourself have an attachment, it goes both sides. Be patient. Your brain is a funky thing. It's gonna do loads of things and tell you lots of lies and make you think that the world's gonna end sometimes. But the world hasn't ended yet. You're still here. I mean, heck, you're watching this video. You have people in your life that love you, and just be patient. The more patience you can have with yourself, the more patience you can have with other people. So yeah, that's my spiel. Steven Spielberg. Okay, all right. Deuces.